Hey everyone, this is Bilsu, and I'm sorry if I sound a little weird. I think I'm getting sick, but this is going to be a very rough, unedited look for the most part of just kind of like more behind the scenes stuff with the game I'm making, Trinity 64. I'll talk a little bit more about not only what I've done so far, but just kind of how I went about doing things. And if you're new to, if you've never seen this game, or you're just stumbling upon this channel, or maybe if you just don't know, this is a game I started at the beginning of this year. Before I started working on this game, I have never really opened Unreal that much, or Blender. And my goal with this game was to make a world that I wanted to exist, inspired by Dark Souls and Elden Ring, Pokemon and other monster tamers, and most importantly Zelda, and specifically Ocarina of Time's art style. And one of the reasons why I chose to do an Ocarina of Time style art style is because I'm trying to make a 3D game as my first game, which is already kind of, I think most people would probably say that that's not that smart. But that's like one of the simplest ways that I could make a 3D game while also being able to create my own assets. And that's really important to me since I'm an artist, and there's a lot of things I want to create that are, they're just not even going to be assets like that. For example, the sword here. This is a sword that I have artwork for, like fully made artwork. And it's something that has kind of been like important to my worlds and brands and stuff. But yeah, so first I'm gonna just kind of show off things that I have done since the last devlog on the Bilsu64 channel. One is the movement. It is a little bit, I guess, more fluid. I can't really explain it. I also added, whenever you now target, you get the black bars, and you kind of have a strafing animation, which obviously is really helpful because now when I go to attack, I'm actually going to be facing the target at all times. Before, I actually wasn't facing the target, so it would be a little bit more of a pain to to attack them, even though I was locked on, my camera was locked on, my character was not locked on, if that makes any sense. And basically Unreal has a setting where you can lock your orientation or your character's rotation to their direction, so that they're always facing the direction that you're turning. Whereas normally, you can face directions you're not actually, like I can run a direction that I'm not actually facing and stuff like that. So, my goal with Philip is to just kind of be like a practice dummy. I kind of want, the reason why I made Philip before doing like actual Guardians and stuff like that is because, my approach to this game is I have to be very careful with like what I decide to make, because it's easy to get overwhelmed when you make a video game, because a lot of times you think too much about the bigger picture of, I gotta make a whole entire game. And so I'm trying to reduce all of that down into just small little wins that I can accomplish. And one way is to say that I'm not even though I'm saying I'm making a game, I'm not thinking of it as an entire game. I'm thinking of it as a slice of the game. That way I feel like I have something, and the only problem would be just making more of that thing. And when that happens, you're a lot more able to actually do that. And oftentimes thinking about a game in a really big scope will just demotivate you. I mean, we all want to make really big games, but another goal for my game with this game was to make things as simple as I can. Started off with like the art style and even things like certain mechanics. Like, I'm not going to have a really robust anything in this game. I don't want to have mechanics that are just so crazy and intertwined that as someone who's new to all this, I would just not realistically be able to do it. And if I was able to do it, it would be very badly implemented. So, but yeah, Philip here will be basically just testing certain things. He's going to be what I test. A lot of things I'm going to be doing around the Guardians. So in a lot of ways, he'll be coded just like a Guardian, just like one that doesn't move and has a lot of health and can't attack or anything. He does have health, so I like to tease that he has the ability to be destroyed, but he has such a high amount of health, and I thought it would be really funny to maybe have some sort of cosmetic or something like that that drops whenever you do sit there and hit him enough. Because that's one thing I really want to add to this game, is just little secrets and stuff like that that reward the player for just enjoying and playing the game. Now when it comes to hitting Philip, there's a few things that are happening for like the whole game feel, because I really want the game to have a good game feel. That's why I'm already doing sounds. And I noticed that a lot of people that make games, they don't actually do sound effects that often, or at least not early on. And to me, I want to actually enjoy testing this game. I want the feedback to be good and stuff like that. So what's funny about his sound effect is it's actually a combination of 3 different sounds. It's like a metal barrel slam sound. It's actually the grass sound from cutting the grass, since he has hay. And then it's also an arrow being shot into like a tree that has that like doing sound. Now you can't hear all of that super clear, but by combining all 3 of those sounds together and with some other tweaks, you kind of get like a unique sound. But then also I added a sound for from when I'm hitting him. So I have like a sword on metal or hard surface sound, which I actually plan to add to like the walls, which I don't currently, but that is a goal. So the same sound that you hear from the sword hitting Philip will be the same sound that you should hopefully hear from hitting things like buildings or walls. Now that's something I don't necessarily have to add. Like, I don't think it's something that's like super crazy, or people would be really upset like, oh my god, he didn't even add like hitting the wall sounds. But it is something that I personally want to add, because to me game feel is almost just as important as like anything else. Now when it comes to what is actually happening when I hit him, as you can see, I actually added a squash and stretch effect. So he's not really animated, but his model is kind of being stretched in like just basically it's just this mesh is being stretched a little bit. On top of that, I added the material that I use for whenever I'm hurt, which is an overlay material in Unreal. Let me click on him, and then I can go to his material. So like here's his regular material, which is all his entire model material is all within a 64 by 64 texture, which is one of the ways that this game can be reduced down in size, is by having textures that small. And that's something I do with every texture. Every texture in the game is 64 by 64. Well, I think there's a few exceptions like UI and something else I can't remember. But if I scroll down here, oops. Where is it? Where is it? Well, actually, it's going to be in his code. Sorry. So if I go to Philip's code, I can kind of explain what's happening. So here's his whole squash and stretch thing, which I should have commented, but I didn't. Now, I did a tutorial to do this because this was an effect that I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do it, but I didn't know how to do it at all. But I learned a lot. I learned about timelines and stuff like that. So, and what's great about this is I can reuse this code for other things. I don't know if the Guardians will have it, but I kind of want them to have... I'm going to try it out, basically. So this is just his damage receiving code. He's only allowed to take damage. He can only take damage from the sword. So I actually created a damage source just from the sword. So he can only take damage from the sword. And he can only be hit every 0.4 seconds. And it just takes off of his health. And yeah. And if you click on Philip's health, you can see he has 1,000 health. And the sword does 10 damage right now. So you have to hit him 100 times, which I'm probably I might change this. So, and then after all that happens, if his health is reduced to 0, he dies. And so whenever he dies, I play his, well, I don't have it coded, but that's going to be an event. Oh, it's down here, actually. Yeah, he's just destroyed. But because I want things to happen when he dies, before he actually is deleted, that's why I created a custom event for it. Now for the hit, he has a hit event. So after he takes damage from the sword, it'll play the hit event. And the hit it plays a camera shake for my camera. Plays the sound, his sound, of him getting hit. It spawns a particle, which is the hay particle that I made. It's just like a little puff of hay with some sprites. And then this is not how I should code this. So it's playing the sound of my sword hitting. So that's not how I want to handle this. So this is something I'm going to have to change. That sound should be coming from my player, not Philip. So same thing with here. The sword sparks from hitting him is also coming from Philip when it should not be coming from Philip. And also the way this is sequenced is not very correct, I don't think. Then it plays the hit squish event, so he gets squished. And then it changes his overlay material, which is just a material on top of his material, to the hurt one, which is this red Fresnel effect, which is the same one that is applied to like me. And then there's a delay, and then it after 0.2 seconds, it sets the overlay to empty. So that way it doesn't stick around. And that's it. That's all that's going on with Philip. And so you can kind of see that in effect now. And so it's really not that hard to set something like this up. I mean, I think the hardest part is just doing all the little assets of it, like the hay particles, just modeling him, the sound effects and stuff. So you probably also noticed that I added sheathing. One thing about sheathing is like, because you probably saw me running around with 2 swords for like multiple shorts, but the reason why is because I didn't really know how to make my sword actually go from my back, attached to my back spine, to my hand. So I was just lazily putting the, when I wanted to do attack stuff, just putting the sword in my hand. Because the damage isn't actually coming from the sword is just a mesh. You know, it's just an object attached to me. or it's just a mesh attached to me, but where the damage is actually coming from is just a, let me see if I can go into my stuff. Animations. All right, so if I go to here, you'll see that down here there is notify sword swing. So at this point to this point, there's actually a, you can't see it because I have it turned off, but there's a sphere trace going around the sword. But what it's doing is it's not actually going around the sword per se, but I created a socket because, like I said, the sword is not part of my character. It's just something attached to a socket. So, it says sword booty, sword tippy. I don't know why I did that. But, so we have sword booty, which is where I wanted the sword to start. So it's a socket attached to like the right hand. But then I added another socket to the right hand and I just put it way out from the character. And that's where I wanted the sword to, like, you know, I basically put the sword here to get like an idea of where it would end. And then I put it way out here. So in a way, it's kind of like I have like a invisible bone coming off of my hand. And that way I can handle all of the hit detection stuff with just my character, because I only plan on having the sword. So because I'm not having all these other weapons, this makes it a lot more simple to just deal with. I basically just do this. I never really have to think about it again, unless there's like hit detection issues and stuff. So also one thing to note is, well, I don't know why his texture on his arm's messed up, but since I was using stock animations, and I know a lot of people had like noticed this, they said like his hand was a little big. Yeah, his hand is a little big. I definitely need to make that smaller, but the animations that I'm using are kind of like deforming parts of his model. But like, I think like this, he looks completely fine for the most part, like besides his hand being a little big. But you know, even the poncho, I think everything looks really good in my opinion. I mean, I'm not even good at like drawing people, so being able to model one is pretty cool. But yeah, it's mostly just the animations that are kind of screwing up his model. But those are temporary. I plan on adding my own, but it's not something I want to think about right now because there's so many little mechanics that I have to add that I don't want to have to focus too much on animations when I'm not that good at it right now. I want to wait till I can actually really focus on them. So, and then also in here, I can just show some other things. So there's a notify that I unsheathed my sword, which basically when it starts playing this animation, basically this is the first sword swing animation. So when I press my button and it starts to swing, it starts playing the animation. And realistically, his sword's not actually in his hand at this point. It's just showing that here, but in game, there's nothing in his hand. The sword's still on his back. But when it gets to the unsheath part, the sword will actually pop from that socket to his hand. But luckily it happens fast enough to where you don't like notice it too much. And then it plays his attack sound for like his voice, sword swing sound, or the sword slash sound, yeah. And the sword particle, which is just a ribbon particle that is going from the sword booty bone to the sword tippy bone. You can't see here, but yeah, I don't know why you can't see it. Whatever. And then it also hits this other notify, which lets the game know that I can do the second part of my combo if I press the button within this time frame. Yeah. And I have 3 swing combos that are essentially the same thing. Okay. This right here is what's going to be the fountain, or the fountain system. It's just, I mean, this is temporary because I want to make sure it works first before I model it. But it's just going to be something that you click on, and when you click on it, your health will be restored, your flask will be restored, everything in the level will be reloaded, and you'll be able to do certain things, like it'll be a menu prompt. Exactly how it is in Dark Souls, but just with different functions that work with this game. As far as like, it's the same as the bonfires. It's also a checkpoint, so every time you die in this area, you will respawn here. Or you'll respawn at the last, you know, fountain that you rested at. Currently, it doesn't work that way. You just respawn in the middle of the map because, like I said, I haven't worked on it yet, but that's definitely on something very soon that I'm working on. I really like this poison effect. I think it looks really cool. I really wanted this dungeon to have this very like corrupted vibe to it. That's something I don't want to spoil yet, but there's some cool ideas I want to do, but I'm just too far off, unfortunately, right now. My big goal is to just do all these main mechanics that are going to be in the game. And once I get all that done for the most part, then I get to have more fun with the other stuff. But yeah, so yeah, sword swings are pretty fun. The sheathing works the same way. When I press, I actually only unsheath when I attack. So I don't, there's no pulling out your sword if you're not attacking, because I'm going to be using the Y button to pick up. So like if something, say you come up to this plant, you press Y to sheath, pick up. So you'd only be able to pick up, because there's going to be like a little pickup animation, I think. Maybe not, maybe I won't. You'll probably still be able to move while you do it, but just to simplify things more. Whoops, shader's loading. Yeah, I just don't see a point in like being able to pull out your sword if you're not attacking, if that makes any sense. So another thing is with the grass. So the grass, I mean, it is so simple. It is just plains. And yeah, it looks very video gamey, but that's like the point. Like, I'm not trying to make, like, I don't know if you know, but grass it like just destroys modern games, I'm pretty sure. So just being able to just do a plane, just a couple planes, and just put a texture on it, it just gets the job done. I mean, and it's the style of the game I'm doing, which helps a lot. And that's basically how Ocarina of Time does it. So, like I said before, this grass isn't cuttable, it's just decoration. I actually need to add collisions to the trees. I don't know why I have not done that. So yeah, the grass is very similar. The grass was actually one of the first things it was the first thing I made that you could destroy. And because it's the most simple thing that I could do. You swing your sword, it does like the whole damage, because whenever you swing your sword, it does that sphere trace on it, which will apply damage. And when it applies damage, the tall grass actually has its own health. It has 1 health. And so whenever it receives damage, it will be instantly destroyed, and it will play a sound effect and a particle effect. And then as you saw there was a chance for it to drop dew or add to your tier count. And so I can kind of show what that looks like with these objects. So this is the whole bush object. I don't really plan on doing anything else with it. I think this is pretty good. It's really simple. And because it's just this simple, it has its own like whole gameplay attached to it, which is really cool. So the event any damage, which is just a pre-made event in Unreal, it has its own health, spiral grass health. When it takes the damage, as you can see, if I click spiral grass health, it has 1 by default. If it takes damage less than 0 or equal to, it plays the cut grass event. On grass cut, plays the sound. It actually changes its material, so it doesn't actually destroy it. I forgot to say that. The grass isn't actually being destroyed. It's just its mesh is changing to another mesh, essentially. I basically just like I basically just erased the top of the texture and kind of like messed with it a little bit, and then I was like, okay, that way it looks like you made sure it looks more like you cut it. Because if I made it to where it just disappeared completely, it would feel a little too, I don't know, I don't think it would feel as satisfying. So yeah, it changes the material to be the cut version, spawns the grass particles, and then what it does is it spawns an actor. So it spawns the do object, which is just an invisible object that just plays like a particle effect. So it's not really anything crazy. There's probably a better way I could handle that, but it made the most sense to me at the time, and it's not causing me any issues because basically the system's done. So I'm happy with it. So what it does is it spawns the do actor, so the do object, but it only has a 30% chance to spawn it. As you can see here, there's only 3 things. So there's a 30% chance or 33% chance that it will spawn a do. Other times it doesn't spawn anything. And then when it does, it just spawns it like a little higher, mostly because it's just a particle effect that's going off with it. Like I said, probably a better way I could do that. Probably not actually spawning anything, but I wanted to keep things contained. And then it also destroys the sphere component after it spawns it. Because if you look into the grass, it has this sphere, which is its hitbox or its hurt box. And just to prevent the particles from like spawning every time, because technically, even though all that stuff's happening, it's not actually the object's not being destroyed, but the sphere is still there. So it can still take damage and still have those effects happening. But because I did all that stuff I needed to do and then I destroyed it, it no longer happens. So now if I go into the do, so this is the entire do thing. All the do it, like it's literally nothing. There's nothing here. All it is an empty object with a loot table. Now, like I said, maybe this isn't the right way to do it. I don't know. I'm kind of at the point with making this game where I can't really just follow tutorials for everything. I kind of have to come up with my own way of doing it. And so this is kind of the way I did it. So spawns do drop particles and gives a random amount of tears to the player. So that's what this does. So when the grass is cut, it has a 30% chance to create this object. So when it creates this object, event begin play is whenever this object exists in the world. It will play a particle effect, so the do particle effect. So like I said, at a third of the time, it will create this object. So when it does create this object, it plays a particle effect. plays the dewdrop sound, which I really love. It's so echoey. Oh yeah. There's also a tier acquired sound. So there's a dewdrop sound and then there's acquired tier sound. That way the player knows when they actually acquired the tiers. So since, even though that seems a little redundant, it just keeps it more consistent. And then it plays drop tiers. Which is a part of its component. So basically I have this loot table component object. And if I go into it, you can see that I added, well, let me see if I can. So this is a little complicated, and honestly, it's not really that complicated, but I don't entirely remember everything about it. But essentially, this is just a loot table system. And yeah, so basically whenever the tiers do drop, it basically creates hold on. Oh yeah. So it basically chooses a tier amount randomly. But the point is that I can go to let me leave this. I can basically, it does all this stuff and it allows it to where it will drop a tier amount in this table. So there's a 30% chance it drops 1 tier, 15% chance it drops 5, 5% chance it drops 10, 1% chance it drops 25, and 0.1% chance it drops 1,000. But the way this works is that it's not just that, because if it was simply that, there was a chance that it would give you like the 30, the 5, the 10, and I kind of want it to be like an actual drop rate. So it goes through this one. If you didn't get the 1 at 30%, then it moves on to the next one, and it keeps going down. So yeah. And then as you can see the UI in the bottom. The UI is temporary. I just wanted a clean looking UI that was simple. That way I can kind of see what I'm doing. Also the pots are basically, whoops, they're very similar to the grass. I'm lagging because of just having so many programs open, because I'm also developing this game on a like 5-year-old laptop. So I do plan on building my own computer. And it's not that this game is like intensive. If anything, it's Unreal. It's another reason why I don't really 100% recommend Unreal. I think it's a little bit too intensive for computers, and also you know, I don't really see the point. Like, there's not real reason to use it for making games like this. Whenever it's mostly used for just really high quality games. But anyway, the pots are very similar to the grass, except the pots actually are destroyed and removed from the game. But they do everything similar to the grass. So it was like the next step. So they're destroyed, they play a sound, they play their particle, and they have a chance to, when they die, yeah, so they have the same type of event as the grass, where they have an event that whenever they take enough damage from the event, they play another event. So they play the pot break. So they play a sound, spawn the particles, but then they also spawn an actor. Well, I guess the other one did that too. And then it destroys. But the actor that this one spawns is different. It spawns the teardrop actor, which it still does it at a 30% rate. But if we look at the teardrop actor, it is this. So I had a lot of fun making this. I mean, it's super simple, but you know, I love messing with just different materials, and it does look it does remind me of like the silver scale from Ocarina of Time. And so when this spawns, it plays Teardrop Grow, which all that does is it just makes the mesh start from 0 and then grows over time to half the size it's supposed to be or whatever. And this is to simulate kind of how it does with Ocarina of Time, where the rupees come out of the pots and they start off really small and then they get to their normal size when they come out. It spawns the dew particle, because anytime a tear shows up, I want to have that dew particle pop up. And then also that dew sound effect will play as well. So I explained the growing. Also, I have a rotator, so it just is always rotating. That way it just adds movement to it. And then... Oh, another thing is that this object is actually considered a projectile. So I made it to where whenever it spawns, it actually kind of shoots out at an arc and lands, because it also has some physics. So, and that's to simulate how they are in Ocarina of Time with the rupees. But yeah, whenever you touch this one's sphere, it will play the drop tears. So it drops the tears, picks that one from its loot table, which, if I click on this, 30% chance to drop 3, 15% chance to drop 15, 5% chance to drop 30, 1% to drop 75, and 0.1% to drop 3,000. It's basically 3 times the amount of tears on average compared to the dew. So when that happens, it chooses the amount, and then it gives that amount to the player. So it casts it to the main player, and he obtains the tears. He plays his obtaining tears event. And anytime, and then it'll play the dew particle whenever you actually touch it. And then plays the tear acquired sound, and then it destroys it. So it's pretty simple for the most part, but it was the next step in trying to do this system. So it was really important to do. It was very complex. I think the hardest part was trying to get the whole arcing animation of it popping out, and I can just try to like demonstrate that real fast. It's pretty generous like hitbox, so I might actually make it a little bit smaller, but see, they pop out and they kind of go in the same direction, so it's predictable, because that's how it is with rupees in Ocarina of Time. But yeah, then they just kind of sit there and they spin. And you collect them, and it adds to your total. Yeah, the engine's just making me lag, unfortunately. So another thing is I added dying. So, but not only did I add dying, I added fall damage, because before there wasn't any fall damage. So, now when you jump off, take damage. You take 10% of your max health. Now, the reason why I added fall damage because this is going to be the beginning of the game. So the reason why I added this ledge with fall damage, because I wanted to teach the player that there was fall damage. And they very clearly had these steps on each side that they could have taken. So it kind of teaches the player, like, hey, you might not want to just recklessly do things because it could hurt you or, you know, cause things to happen. So 10% of your max health from dropping from that level of distance. But really any farther than that, like I would say maybe like a little bit farther than that, you'll take the major amount, which I can demonstrate up here. If the lag doesn't ruin it for me. Mostly just because I'm recording and Unreal and stuff like that. I do plan on adding ledge grabbing, but not shimmying, by the way. So yeah, there'll be an item up here that you need to get. Originally it was Philip. Now, if you jump and land on there, you actually won't take damage. So that's the correct thing to do. But if I was to like jump, I'll take some damage. But I didn't take the high amount because you'll still only take the 10%. But if I was to jump way up here and jump down, I took 50% of my health. So there's still some things to add, like different sound effects and, you know, stuff like that. But the functionality's there. It works how I want to. I also updated the poison to where it just immediately starts dealing damage to you. And as you can see, I died. And it plays the death screen. And then it respawns me in the middle of the map. Now, whenever you die, just like Souls fashion, you will actually drop your tears where you died in one big teardrop. Now, if you don't collect it after you died, they'll be gone. So, you want to make sure that you're able to get your tears and get out of whatever situation that was, just like in Souls. And that was actually pretty complicated setup for me personally, because there wasn't, even though you would think that like, oh, it's a Souls, oh, there's a bug right there where I didn't, actually swung, I didn't even have my sword out. So that's something I'm gonna have to, yep, see, it just happened there. I'll have to figure that out. But yeah, the tears mechanic was also something that was pretty complex as far as like the dropping part of it. So you drop the dropped tears, and when it spawns, I actually have to disable its collision, because if you die and it spawns, it'll make you collect it, based on my death event that I have for my character. So I have to make sure that I disable its collision, and I also hide it until like a delay, 5 seconds. And then when you overlap with it, with the player, it adds it to your tears, plays the dew particle effect, plays the tear thing, plays the UI, and then destroys it. And then it also rotates. So a lot of that doesn't seem too crazy, but it was mostly just making it actually work the way I wanted it to. There was points where it was just, it wasn't destroying. I wasn't able to get it to destroy, so there would be two of them. And even though it functioned correctly, I didn't want the other one to exist. So, yeah, there's a little bit of issues and stuff, but I got it working, and it so far works exactly the way I want it to. There's still things to like test a little bit with in regards to it spawning, because right now the game is checking my location every like little bit, and so you know, if I was to like, I don't know, let me try to fall off in like a really weird spot. Okay, I'm just gonna die. It's the lag. Oh my god. So that's not a very weird spot. I mean, that's where I basically died. But you don't want it to do it exactly where you died, because what happens is, I'll show you. Well, it won't work. Well, let me just jump off. So like if I was to do a, you know, a pit death, and it spawned it where I died, which would be in the kill zone, well then your tears are in an unreachable spot. And they might even be down there now. Yep. So that's something I'm still tweaking and updating, because it doesn't always do it. Like, see, here it's fine. Ideally, it's a little bit before you die. So. Trying to think. I think for the most part, that's mostly what I have done so far. But I kind of just wanted to make this video to roughly show things behind the scenes and kind of explain things for people that maybe make games, and maybe whether it helps you or it's something that, you know, whether it helps you or it's something that, you know, you want to like give advice on or something like that, that's fine. Like I said, I'm going to make mistakes while making this game. I plan on it. I'm not trying to, I don't want to spend so much time trying to fix my mistakes. As long as things work the way I want them to, I'm pretty okay with how it is. And luckily, since I'm making a game that is lower graphical quality, making like inefficient mistakes, type of mistakes, isn't really the end of the world. But, you know, if people have any suggestions or things like that, let me know. Also, make sure to let me know what you would want me to actually show off more of. Like I said, this video was just to show off mostly what I've done so far in a rough way. But if you want to know like how I did a texture, like how I vertex colored certain parts of the map or whatever, yeah, just let me know. So thank you guys for watching. If you managed to get to this point, like I said, it's not really going to be an edited video, so I hope that's okay. I kind of made this channel to just post things that are just not really, I guess, algorithm focused, that and don't clog up my other channels. And I also just can't really live stream because of my internet. So yeah, thanks for watching.